gentlemen, hey, congratulations for My Dead Dad.
Thank you so much. It's hard making one of the best movies of the year, but we did it.
That is a terrific outlook. Well, it's being showcased here at the Austin Film Festival. How do you guys feel about that?
We feel great. I mean, honestly, you make the best movie you can. You don't really know if you're going to get in any festivals because it's such a toss-up. But, you know, to be in this one is pretty inspiring, I would say.
Absolutely.
Well, especially the fact that Austin Film Festival is going to be a physical attendance film festival, so you'll get the actual reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done we've done 2 smaller ones, but Pedro wasn't able to go. He was in Thailand shooting a movie, so this will be our first festival watching it together. So it's kind of awesome because
we might just kiss. I'm super excited. We were just talking about that actually, of getting the experience to actually watch in a theater with real life people. Wow. And so I'm super excited to get the chance now to experience that as well.
That is great. Well, let's start off with the easy question. Pedro, where did the original idea came from when you wrote the script for My Dead Dad?
Well, so a lot of the script was inspired by real moments of both of our lives, but sort of the seed, I guess, inspiration for some of the kind of main plot came from some real events. When I hadn't seen my dad in years and years and years after my mom and dad got divorced. And one day when I was about 14, my dad was living in Peru at the time. I was living on the other side of the country, or the world, I should say. And he called me up and was like, hey, I'm dying. I have lung cancer and you're going to need to run an apartment that I have in Peru. And I was shocked to hear his voice in the first place, let alone that he was dying, and then also that he owned an apartment. I didn't know that either. And to run that as such a young kid, I mean, is an insane idea. But luckily in real life, he actually got his lung surgically removed and survived by a sliver of fate. And then we reconnected a little bit as adults. But after all that happened, flash forward years later, Fabio and I met in Los Angeles, and we sort of played with the idea of the fish out of water. And what you?
Yeah, it's pretty much that's the starting point of the writing process.
Yeah, exactly. And many beers later, many coffees later, now we have a movie.
So Pedro, just like your character, you have no idea on how to run an apartment. So hopefully that day doesn't come, right?
Yes. Give me away from apartments. I don't know how to run my own life, so
So Fabio, how did you want to approach a film like this? I guess the very first thing is to get an apartment, right?
Well, at the time we were watching a lot of Star Wars Episode 1, and which doesn't seem like that would be an inspiration for this movie, but we were kind of like, all right, we can't do anything that big budget, so let's try to write something that where the locations are more accessible to us. And that was kind of like the constraints that we put on ourselves. So yeah, we thought it would be easier than it was, because there's actually a lot of locations when you add it up. I think we had over 40. Yeah. None of them were particularly hard to get, but it's just to juggle that many locations in a indie movie is a little tricky. So we had to move the whole crew at least once a day and some days twice. So it was a bit ambitious, but yeah, I mean, we kind of were like, all right, we think we can probably raise this much money and get these locations. So let's try to write something within that and not try to do too much, and try to use our limitations as almost an advantage versus a disadvantage.
Yeah. And also part of the planning of the apartments, we were like, oh, it'd be great. We can shoot in all our friends' house and they'll be totally cool with it. Yeah. That's how you find out you're real friends. Ask to go shoot in their place. It's a horrible idea. So we ended up having to actually find many other real life apartments from other people, and actually we used Fabio's apartment for part of it.
Apartment for one day.
Yeah, and the Sophie Gavin Lucas scene in the kitchen. It's his real kitchen. So authenticity, baby.
Well, yeah, the whole apartment complex is actually 3 different locations. So the tricky part was to shoot it in a way where it looked all like one building, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I found funny about, well, I mean, I guess it's not that funny, but what I found amusing was that if I inherited an apartment in LA, I would be rich. I mean, real estate in LA is pretty expensive. I mean, on the other hand, if I inherited an apartment complex in Reno, I probably would sell that. That's
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, that was honestly one of the struggles of writing the script, is that, like you said, maybe in reality it would be, well, that's kind of the thing too, right? Is like he is torn between selling it and making a lot of money, or like keeping this thing that reminds him of his dad. So in the end of the movie, he decides to keep it. You don't really make money on real estate until you sell, right? So your home might be worth double of what you bought it for, but until you sell it, like all that happens is your property tax goes up. So it actually ends up costing you money. So I think at the end he decides to like not take the money and to keep this thing going for his dad. So that was kind of one of the lessons that he learns throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah. Well, Pedro, how did you get in the headspace of Lucas, who, to me, I feel like he's actually either struggling about the memories of his father or struggling about himself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, this was an interesting movie, I think, for a lot of us involved, but particularly I can speak for myself on this. I mean, when we started writing the script, I had a very certain vision of my own dad. And throughout the process, it changed at every moment. You know, when we were writing, when we were shooting, when we were even editing. My dad actually saw it for the first time like a week ago, and he didn't even really know about the movie very much. So it was like an interesting experience for sure. But I think part of the headspace, I mean, a lot of it comes from a real place. So to be honest, it wasn't super hard getting there. You know what I mean? And Fabio and I both were kind of in an interesting place when we first started writing the movie. We both had these independent projects that fell through, and so we were coming from a very guttural place, I should say.
What about the old footage? You know, these the photos with the kid or the video. Is that all you, Pedro?
No, it's actually an interesting mixture to where even now that I watch it, like we've seen it so many times since we're both in the editing room cutting every day forever. But half of, I don't know actually how much percentage of it is real. Well, I think a lot of the end stuff,
roughly half of it is Pedro's real childhood footage, and the other half is us. I'm kind of a camera nerd, so we bought like an old VHS camera and also an old mini DV camera for the skating stuff.
Yeah,
because I kind of hate when it's like obviously shot on like an Arri Alexa with like a filter on it, you know. So we shot with real cameras, so the footage matches really well. But like the actual dad is an actor.
Yeah, Ricardo Molina.
Yeah, great. But all the old shots of Pedro as a kid are his mom's actual home footage that we got.
Yeah, and there's actually some like cool Easter eggs that only my family would know. But you know, there's a shot of like baby Lucas. It's actually my sister. Yeah. You know, she was like a baby, but when you're a baby, it's, you know, they all look the same, babies. Let's be real. And you know, there's a couple shots too, me riding on my dad's back, and then just as he's turning, it cuts to another shot of like the actor, you know. Yeah. So we were really sneaky with it, but it's really special in that way. And I think that's kind of part of the authenticity that shines through, hopefully, where it's like there is very literal, real stuff, and then there's stuff that we doctored up a little bit.
Wow. Now, the skateboarding part for Lucas was that just put in there because Pedro, you love skateboarding as a hobby, or that's something that you guys always wanted as a like kind of like a background for the character?
Well, both me and Pedro both grew up in the skate culture of like the late 90s, early 2000s. So I don't know. You just write about what you know kind of thing. I think that we knew that we wanted the character to have some kind of like personal failure at the beginning of the movie. So it just made sense that, you know, because we have a lot of friends like this, both in skateboarding and in filmmaking and acting and everything else, where it's like they do have a lot of talent, but they didn't quite ever go pro to make a living off of it.
Yeah.
I mean, even we, up until recently, and I mean, even now, it's still, the future isn't super clear. It's like, we're kind of in that boat. I think it came from a real place where it's like, all right, we obviously like are pretty good at writing. Pedro is a great actor. I know I can direct, but like, we're not really making a living off of it right now. We're doing like kind of bullshit side jobs we don't want to do. So a lot of that was it's that place where it's like, do you double down or do you move on, you know? So for the character of Lucas, he was kind of in a place where, because he had like a really bad accident, he just kind of gave up skateboarding, you know? And then it's that weird thing where it's like, if you spend 10, 15 years of your life in your mind, sure that you're going to make a career as a dancer, you know, ice skater, actor, whatever, and then it doesn't work out, you're left in this really weird place where you're like, what do I do now? Like, how does my life have meaning?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we wanted Lucas to start off. So, but the fact that it happened to be skateboarding just felt natural. And also, I mean, let's be real, you know, skateboarding always looks cool, especially if you know how to shoot it right, like we do. You know, it's like, even non-skaters always think it's cool. So it was kind of easy.
No, it's definitely right about the commitment factor. There is definitely a parallel between filmmaking and skating where you got to go hard or go home. And yeah, sometimes you break down. And man, when we were actually in development, when we were writing the script or the second draft of it, I think I was going extra hard skateboarding. I skate usually like every day in LA, and a little time went by after we shot our first like concept trailer, and I broke both my arms at the same time, kind of preparing mentally for the role. And there was a moment actually when we were, I think, finishing the concept trailer that we made where I was, sitting there with 2 broken arms. We're at the editing, suite, and just not able to type and dictating notes. We're arguing about notes, and my mom was there at the time. She's like, "You guys are arguing about the color of the sky."
I remember that.
Yeah. So, anyways, it was crazy.
He broke both his wrists getting ready for the role, and then because that makes it almost impossible to do anything like with your fingers, his mom had to fly in and stay with him for 2 months until he was healed up.
It's crazy, but I think it gave us actually a good opportunity to really like look at the story as a whole, and it also added a weird element where there's a lot of stuff that's based on real life in this movie, but also it's the kind of like life imitates art thing where stuff started to happen, the arms, where it was like kind of a same thing with Lucas, where a lot of parallels are interesting.
Then I'm curious, the broken wrist part that the girl, Courtney, played, was that inputted into the script? I'm because I was thinking in the back of my head that Courtney tried to do skateboarding and she broke her wrist, and that's why you guys put that in. That's
a good question. Yeah, I think that probably came in the later draft, because we did have a draft where she didn't break her wrist, and then after I was sitting there for 2 months, I'm sure it was like a no-brainer where it's like, yeah, all right, we know what that's like. That's for sure in there.
Yeah,
right.
It's probably subconscious. We haven't thought of that till just now. Yeah. You're making us overthink our own movie, dude. You gotta stop.
Well, it's one of those movies that you have to contemplate and think, right? That's what you guys are going for. You want us to relate and think about our own lives, or run an apartment complex.
I want everybody that watches this movie to like think about the failures of their own life and how they're gonna get over it.
And I want everyone to break 2 of their wrists. So.
Yeah, we're gonna be at the screening with the sledgehammer.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious. There was a joke in the film where Lucas was actually talking to some tenants about his father being Hispanic, but he's looking white. Pedro, was that a poke fun at yourself?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's straight out of real life. You know, it's pretty much a daily question. And in my own family, you know, half my family speaks 100% Spanish, and I'll go over there and be like, you know, el disappointment. But yeah, no, it was a real thing.
So what is your heritage? Peruvian?
Yeah, I'm Peruvian.
Yeah. Well, he's half Peruvian from his dad and then half American, like Pacific Northwest from his mom.
Right.
But
it's
that, but you know how it goes sometimes, like you can be half of something and look a lot more like one half. And it's been very interesting as Pedro's friend to see, because Hollywood, a lot of times, like for a while, his manager was putting him out for Latin roles, and they only want like guys who look like Mayan warriors. You know what I mean? Like they have like one super specific type that is Latin, and everything else doesn't count. But like, you know, I have friends from Mexico who are Jewish. I have, you know, I have friends from Argentina who are, you know, they look very much European, but they only speak Spanish, you know? And it's like, being Latin, like, is a much broader spectrum, but in Hollywood, you have to look like you're like straight from like Baja, Mexico, you know, or else you're not Latin. It doesn't count. And you have to be like a certain shade. And so like all the time, like Pedro, they'd be like, you're not, like, that was pretty much taken from like auditions he had where they're like, yeah, but you're white.
Okay.
You know, like,
yeah.
Well, since now you got this all wrapped up, where after the Austin Film Festival, where people could also hopefully check out My Dead Dad down the road.
Yeah, so we're looking for a distribution right now, but we're playing at a couple other film festivals after Austin that like Whistler in Canada. It looks like Jacksonville, Florida, Santa Fe.
Yonkers, New York.
Yeah, Yonkers, New York. We're kind of doing like the festival, like kind of tour, but yeah, we're truly indie in terms of like we don't even have distribution yet, so we're hoping to get that figured out in the next 2 months and then get it out in like a place where just the general public can see it. So it's been kind of a whirlwind, honestly. You know, it's literally just been the two of us doing pretty much everything. So. on the next one, hopefully the team will be like 4 or 5 people, and but I mean, it's been crazy. It's like we have to do kind of everything ourselves, so, and we're learning as we go. You know, this is our first feature, so
yeah, a lot of juggling.
Well, yeah. That's the true spirit of indie films.
Yeah.
One more thing, Pedro, you just came back from Thailand. I'm actually born in Thailand, and I haven't been back since 2009. I was supposed to go, you know.
Wait, you were born in 2009?
Last year. Yeah, I was born in Thailand. So
in 2009?
No. I haven't been back since 2009.
Yeah. Oh, no way. Where were you born in Thailand?
Nothing too exciting. Bangkok, obviously.
Okay, there you go. I mean, that's where I just spent 4.5 weeks. So yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Thailand's crazy. I was just like, got out of my trailer on set, and literally there's 2 feet of water. You know, it was the rainy season. You had to take off my foot, like, river and street to the other side of set. Bangkok's amazing. I love Thailand. It's always an adventure. That's for sure.
Well, hopefully it will be safe for me to travel back there one of these days. Because you know,
yeah,
I've heard the pandemic is kind of crazy over there too. So
yeah, it's a lot to manage for sure. But yeah, maybe you can go to Phuket, stop over. They make you do it was a 2-week quarantine, but they just changed it to a week quarantine. But if you go to Phuket, they call it the sandbox, where your quarantine is a private beach. So why didn't I do that? That's my question.
That is terrific. Well, hey, gentlemen, I took enough of your time already, but hey, enjoy the Austin Film Festival, and
Thanks, man.
and I look forward to on your guys' second feature film when that comes down the road.
Yeah,
we're taking a road trip in my RV back to LA from Austin, and we already have an outline for another script, but hopefully we'll flesh it out a little bit more.
Coming
You're
soon.
gonna start filming in the RV.
No.
Maybe a little concept trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, man. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks for having us on. And
I'm glad you liked the movie.
Hey, thank you. Next time, gentlemen.
All right, man. Have a good one.
See ya.